Well, look, what kind of God condemns a soul to an eternity of torture?
Right.
That's not a God of mercy. That's not a God of compassion. It's not a God of forgiveness. That's a God of vengeance.
They apparently have not watched any of my videos.
No, they don't. They pick and choose what they want to respond
Yeah,
to
well,
to self-aggrandize, to make themselves look like they're knowledgeable and they know what they're talking about.
welcome to TaNaCh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of TNT, the Twisted New Testament, with Rabbi Stuart Federow and his two books, Judaism and Christianity, A Contrast, and Why, or with the real reasons why Jews will never accept Jesus. Welcome back. Rabbi, how are you? How are you? Very good to see you again. Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely.
Yes.
Excellent.
The real reasons why Jews don't believe in Jesus.
Yep. There you go.
Yep.
So today we're going to be discussing the title, which is, Didn't the Jewish Messiah Already Come? And I used to think that. I used to think he did. So should we go ahead and play the audio that we just lay down the foundation for our show? Okay, let's do that. Let's go and play the audio.
Let them know what we're talking about,
yeah,
we're responding to.
And if you're Christian or Messianic, you'll know exactly what I'm referring to already. This is, should we give them the verse first or do this, play the audio first?
Both. Give them the audio. Give them the reference. Why not? Maybe they want to look it up in the beginning.
Okay, good. Okay, let's do that then. So here's the thing. So I'm going to share with you a verse from TaNaCh, which is the Christians Messianic call it the New Testament. Well, actually, the Messianics call it the Brit Hadashah. But anyway, it's the New Testament. Although not the New Covenant, according to Jeremiah. Speaking of Jeremiah, that's where we're going to go right now. Jeremiah 31:34. So take a second and pull that up on your page, or you can just let me read it off to you. I don't have a screen share set up for it, so I'll just read it. So Jeremiah 31:34. So I think all of us would agree that if the prophets have something specific to say, and it's very clear that everyone should be listening to it. And this is something that that was one of the many things that led me out of my journey that I was on at the time. So 31:34. This is talking about when the Messiah comes. So Jesus already came once. He already came twice, really, because he died and was resurrected, and they saw him a second time. So they're waiting on him a third time. But it says when he comes, and there's no second coming in Judaism. There's no second coming in TaNaCh. There's possibly two Messiahs, like Messiah ben David, Messiah ben Joseph. And no, it's not the same Joseph. Different Joseph. From the tribe of Ephraim, yeah.
You mean it's not anybody whose daddy's named Joey?
Right. That would open up a lot of doors, wouldn't it? So here we go. And so the prophets declare that when the Messiah does come, remember in TaNaCh there's only a single coming. When the Messiah comes, he was going to come. This is going to happen. All the messianic prophecies that he's supposed to fulfill and will happen around his time will happen that one time he comes. This verse says, "And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord. For they shall all know me, from the least to them to the greatest of them, saith the Lord. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more." Now see, Jesus pay attention to that second half, but they don't pay attention to the first half. It says, "And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least to the greatest of them." Right? So Christians are still knocking on doors. They're still trying to spread the gospel. But here, yep. And the thing about it is, there's a difference between having faith in something and then knowing something, an intellectual knowledge of something. For example, I don't have to have faith to believe that Trump is the president. It's a fact. There's no faith necessary. In Judaism, Rabbi, you correct me. In fact, I'm doing all the talking. I need to shut up.
No. This is a conversation.
Yeah. And so, is it true that in the TaNaCh, in the Jewish world, is it true that when the Messiah comes, you will have to worship him and bow to him and pray to him and give homage to the Messiah?
To the Messiah?
To the Messiah.
No.
No, none of that. Okay.
I thought you switched.
I did. I did.
At the very end, I thought you were going to say that you have to worship and pay homage to God.
Yes, right.
And actually, actually, there might be some alternative, whatever, that everybody will acknowledge that God is God, but it doesn't mean they have to be Jews.
Right. Oh yeah, right, true.
So even that is a step
Yeah.
that's different. Whereas Christianity says everybody gonna be Christian.
Yep.
So
So, so that's the conflict we have, and the reason why that's a conflict, of course, is because of this is just an audio clip. This is a dramatization of something that you've heard in your New Testament.
Who do people say the Son of Man is? Some say you are Elijah, the one who preaches repentance.
So, of course, they're talking about Jesus is talking. Who do the people say that the Son of Man is? Interestingly, use the Son of Man. If you've never tuned this channel, you might be shocked to realize that Psalms 136:4, something like that. I'm not sure about the verse number. Says, "Do not give heed to princes, nor in the Son of Man, in whom there is no salvation."
right.
Jesus is referred to as the Son of Man over 80 times in the New Testament, and being called the Son of Man, but he doesn't have a daddy, a father. That's weird. Anyway, long story short. Okay, continuing on.
Others say Jeremiah, because he was rejected by the leaders of his time.
And still others say one of the prophets, those that spoke on God's behalf.
Some say John the Baptizer.
Which obviously isn't true.
But who do you say that I am? You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. These carved statues of Baal and Pan and other idols that we passed,
This isn't all word for word, of
they're
course.
dead and decaying, but we
This is a dramatization ad lib with the movie, but still the point.
worship a living God, and you are his son.
Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah. All your life, you've been called Simon, one who hears. But today, I call you Peter.
Sorry, I used to eat that stuff up, man. Man, I used to eat that up. Wow. And now looking back to see, it's almost, and not to be disrespectful, but it kind of reminds me, younger whenever, or let's use another kid, when they finally realize the Easter Bunny is not real or Santa Claus isn't real. And if they're young enough, that'll really mess them up. But as they get older, they kind of, they might say, well, I knew that. It was pretty obvious. But, there, at some point, there's an area of crossing that people get really destroyed over this, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to open your eyes, welcome to the Matrix, basically.
Welcome to the red pill. We're just showing you the truth.
Yeah. Yes. So ironically, in the text, for me, at first I interpreted it kind of like they played it all out in all the movies and stuff. But as I began to question it myself and go back and read it now, it looks like Jesus at that setting, Jesus isn't sure himself, because realistically, if he was thoroughly sure, he wouldn't have asked the question to begin with. I don't think anyway.
Well, Christians would say that he's testing the disciples.
Sure.
Who do you say I am?
Right.
And doesn't that contrast heavily with Mark, where Jesus keeps telling them, "Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody."
Yeah. Right.
So,
well, he's talking about don't tell the public, but still, right. And all of it conflicts with Jeremiah 31:34. It says, "All will know from the least to the greatest of them."
Yeah, except if they're still missionizing, they don't all know the Lord.
Yep.
Therefore, the Messiah hasn't even come yet.
Right.
Which is the whole point. But it's not just that. Okay, the whole 31:31 is speaking about the reunified 12 tribes. I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. House of Israel, house of Judah is the northern kingdom, the southern kingdom. And when God makes in Jeremiah 31:31, I'll make a covenant with them both, it means they're reunified. Also hasn't happened yet.
Right. I find it interesting, too, that this is the only verse in TaNaCh that supports the New Testament that the Christians are claiming, right? Am I right in that, or is there another one?
I don't know of any other one.
Okay,
this is certainly the one that is their go-to verse.
This is definitely Jeremiah 31 is the one. But what's really wild is because they say, of course it is, because it's prophecy, so it has to come true, right? So what about
not their truth?
But what about verse 30, the one right before it in the same prophecy?
Yeah, but see, that's just it.
Let me read it because
well,
it's part of my comment, and then you comment.
okay.
Because if 31 is true, then 30 has to be true also. But everyone shall die for his own iniquity. Every man that eateth sour grapes, his teeth will be set on edge, not someone else's. So for you to sin and you to say Jesus died for your sin is a contradiction of verse 30. So if 31 has come true, you're saying 30 can't. That means that the whole thing is either true or false. You can't pick and choose, Rabbi.
Well, I was just going to say that 31:31 begins, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord." Jeremiah 31:27 begins exactly the same way.
Right. Okay.
"Behold, the days come, saith the Lord," which means that this new covenant doesn't begin with 31:31.
Right.
It's actually being described by beginning with 31:27. And
Nice.
again,
Nice.
it says, "I will sow the house of Israel and the house of Judah with the seed of man and the seed of beast." Well, again, in order for that to happen, the 12 tribes have to be reunited. The northern kingdom and southern kingdom have to be reunited. But then what does it say? It says, "In those days,"
Yep.
and this is 29, "in those days they shall say no more, the fathers have eaten a sour grape, and the children's teeth are set on edge," which in numerous places in the Bible is their way of saying the children suffer for the sins of the parents.
Right.
Okay. But then it goes on to say, like you just quoted, they're not going to have this stupid idea that somebody else can die for your sin. Every man shall die for his
Right.
own sin. Every man that eats sour grapes, their teeth will be set on edge.
Yep. And this is end times prophecy. This is the area that I don't understand why preachers haven't seen it, or I think they just haven't looked at it. I don't think that they've seen it and justified it. I think that they just, when they go to seminary school, I just don't think they cover this kind of stuff.
William,
Maybe.
So often I get told by people, "Oh, you're a rabbi. Oh, I've read the Bible from beginning to end. I know it cold. I've studied it my whole life." And then you ask them the simplest, basic, elemental questions about what's in the Bible.
Yeah, like how many animals were on the ark, of how many pairs of what was on the ark.
Or
That's great.
Go all the way back. Why did Adam and Eve get kicked out of the Garden of Eden? Because they sinned.
Yeah. Right.
Really? Where does it say that?
Yeah.
And they because all they are learning, all they're studying, all they're reading are very specific verses and not anything else.
Yeah, right.
So they may know 31:31, but they probably don't know 31:30, 31:32.
Yeah, right. So I may consider a secondary title, not a different title, but a secondary, like a second half of the title, and it might be that right there, where they're just accept half of a prophecy, but reject the other half, something tied to that nature.
And they're not even taking prophecy. They're just saying the fact that it's called a New Testament. I will make a new covenant. Oh, new covenant, that's the New Testament, New Bible, that's them. But they don't look at what that entails.
That's so cool.
And by the way, they may know 31:31, but they don't know 31:1. From the very beginning, this whole chapter is about God reestablishing, reaffirming, strengthening the already existing covenant that exists, the eternal covenant between the eternal God and the eternal Jewish people. So 31:1, at the same time saith the Eternal, I will be the God of all the families of Israel, and they shall be my people. It's talking about the remnant. Jeremiah, it's post first destruction, or around the first destruction. And 31:2, the people which were left of the sword found grace in the wilderness, even Israel, when I went to cause him to rest. Okay, you've got 31:7, for thus saith the Eternal, sing with gladness for Jacob and shout among the chief of the nations. Publish you, praise you, and say, O Eternal, save your people, the remnant of Israel. It's all about God and Israel, not about God and the Christians, not about God and Messianic Christians, sometimes wrongly referred to as Messianic Jews. So it's a reaffirming, reestablishing the already existing eternal covenant between the eternal God and the eternal Jewish people. And they really, what's Jeremiah 31 about? It happens so often.
Yeah. Let's see. I just typed in Messianic prophecies in Google Chrome. And it says, key features of Messianic prophecies. The very first thing that came up was virgin birth. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Sufferings and death, Psalm 22, Isaiah 53. Okay. Resurrection, Psalm 16:10. Descendant of David. That's funny because Jesus wasn't born in Bethlehem. Not.
Ki lo ta'azov nafshi lish'ol.
What does that say?
That's just the Hebrew of 16:10.
Okay.
So it's, for you will not abandon my soul to hell. And the word there for hell is Sheol.
Oh, I see.
And again, we've said this repeatedly, but we don't have to look at it. We've said it often enough.
So we'll move into the topic hell. And in a conversation, you brought up something really interesting about the term, not Gehenna, but Sheol. And you read that.
Oh.
Yeah. And
well,
so
there are a few terms that Christians usually want to believe are really about a Jewish idea of hell, but none of them are.
Okay.
And the first one is Sheol. So the the problem, look, words have meaning, and words have very specific meaning, because if they didn't, how do we communicate with each other? So if you ask any random person on the street, no matter who it is, and you ask them to define hell, they're going to say it's the place the soul goes to be tortured for eternity because of their sin. I mean, I don't know any other way that any person would define that. And that the word hell doesn't apply to what Jews believe about the afterlife because of that word eternal. We believe in a punishment in the next life for the unrepented sins committed in this life. We believe the punishment fits the sin. But as it says in Ecclesiastes 12:7, the dust returns to the dust from which it came. The soul or spirit goes back to God who gave it. And it doesn't say the Jewish soul goes back. It doesn't say the righteous soul goes back. It says the soul goes back. So Jews don't believe that only Jews go to heaven. Jews don't believe that, that you got to be Jewish to get to heaven or whatever. But if you take a look at the word Sheol in the Hebrew scriptures, it defines the afterlife, but it's no hell. And the best example of that is...
Didn't you just bring up Samuel and Saul?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to find the exact quotation.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize I would try to help you find it. Be Samuel, 1 Samuel 28:3.
Yeah. How do you find this so fast?
Use Google, man. It's you just put in one or two words, it'll pull anything you want up.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's 1 Samuel 28.
28 verse 3 through 25.
Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem, And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. So the point is that Saul starts asking God what's going to happen, what he should do, and God's already angry at Saul, and he doesn't give him an answer. So basically, Saul goes to find a woman who will conjure up the soul of Samuel the prophet, who used to tell him what God wanted him to know. And then you have the following, 1 Samuel 28:11. So we're skipping a few verses ahead. Then said the woman, whom shall I bring up to you? And he said, bring me up Samuel. Verse 12. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice, and the woman spoke to Saul, saying, why have you deceived me? You are Saul. Remember, Saul had made outlawed bringing up souls. And the king said to her, don't be afraid, for what did you see? And the woman said to Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. Bad translation, but whatever. Verse 14, and he said to her, what form is he of? And she said, an old man comes up, and he's covered with a mantle. And Saul knew that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. And Samuel said to Saul, why have you disquieted me to bring me up? So Samuel's response to Saul, as soon as he gets out of Sheol, is, why are you bothering me? So clearly, Samuel is not in a place of torture, eternal torture of any kind, or else he would have said to Saul, thank you for getting me out of there, even for only a few minutes. So Sheol is the afterlife, and there's a debate, a disagreement on the root of Sheol. I believe that the word Sheol has the root in Shoel, to ask. She'elah is a question. So I think Sheol is the unknown, but it is not a hell. Then you have people talking about Gehenna. Gehenna is a Greekized word from Gehinnom, which means the valley of Hinnom. And the valley of Hinnom was a, not alley, what do they call it? A valley coming out of Jerusalem, which used to be a number of things. First of all, it was the place where the idolatry committing Jews would sacrifice their children to Baal, the pagan god. And then later it became the garbage pit for the old city, for Jerusalem. And so what happens when you have garbage pits? Well, it can catch fire. So it's a smelly, yucky place that can catch fire, and that became the image for the punishment of the afterlife. But that punishment is not eternal. Now, if you want to get really down to it, okay, there are certain people, because of certain actions, that, they are so perverted with their heinous sins that, for them, few and far between, exceptionally few people, exceptionally few transgressions will get a punishment that's eternal. But that's so far between, so few people, so exceptionally rare, that the incredibly vast majority of people on earth will not have an eternal torture. So the idea of Jews believing in hell, which by definition means eternally tortured for sin, that's just not what we believe, except for an incredibly minor group of people who have committed very specific heinous sins. So but the image of the afterlife and the image of what happens, because there is a punishment, it's just not eternal, is this idea of this valley that is the garbage pit where fires would break out and where people would do such horrible, horrible things as killing their children in the name of their false gods. Sound familiar? So,
right.
And that's just two words.
What threat is there in TaNaCh, like in Christianity? The threat is, if you don't bow your knee to Jesus, you're going to burn in hell forever. Is there a threat in Judaism about rejecting God?
Oh, well, you're not supposed to reject God.
Right.
And there are certain punishments for you know, blaspheming against God, but
Sure.
they're not eternal torture. Well, look, what kind of God condemns a soul to an eternity of torture?
Right.
That's not a God of mercy. That's not a God of compassion. It's not a God of forgiveness. That's a God of vengeance.
I could
That's what
see.
they accuse. That's what they accuse the Jewish idea of God in the Hebrew Scriptures of being.
I could see how the Creator would send somebody to an eternal place of punishment if it was just a person who was just completely wicked, who was just
Exactly.
didn't spend his whole life just trying to torture people and animals
Exactly.
and
That's exactly
raping and
it.
murderers and things like that. I could see how that would be, but not someone who's just trying to live life. You know what I mean?
Right. Look, how many people have you committed first-degree murder against lately? I mean, come on. You know, most people just want to eke out a living. They want to have some joy in their life. They want, peace. They want as few or little drama as they can. They just want to live their life. And most people are not
Yeah.
evil.
Right.
They make mistakes. They sometimes choose to do bad. But come on. What kind of God condemns the average normal person who's made mistakes, who has committed sin,
Yeah.
who has done some bad things, even on purpose? But eternity is a really long time. What does God get out of condemning a soul for eternity to be tortured? And what does it mean to be tortured? If the spirit, if the body, the dust returns to dust from which it came, and what's left is the spiritual, how do you burn the spiritual? Spiritual is not material. Spiritual is spiritual.
Right.
So the idea of a lake of fire, what's it going to burn? Never made sense to me. Still doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. They still have the concept, Christians do, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth sort of thing. They believe that if you poke someone's eye out, that the other person should poke your eye out, but that's not what that means. So, but they're so fixed on torture and punishment that they think that that's what it is. It's not compensation. It's actually punishment. And
well, there's a whole big problem with those verses of like eye for an eye.
Yeah. So eye over an eye under an eye, I think is what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it says. Eye under an eye.
Right.
So what it's doing is it's creating a 1-to-1 ratio of the problem and the solution, the transgression and the response. In other words, it's a limitation to revenge. It's not a demand for revenge. It's only an eye for an eye, only a tooth for a tooth, only a hand for a hand, only a foot for a foot, which is a much better way to translate it because that's the idea of 1-to-1 ratio.
Right.
Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Not 2 eyes for 1 eye, 5 teeth for 1 tooth. It's a limitation to revenge, not a demand for revenge. And if you take a look at other verses in proximity to Exodus 21, where it goes into this, okay, I can't remember where it is offhand, but there's something to the effect of somebody does a sin, and then the response, and I think it's premeditated first degree cold-blooded murder. But I think the text reads something to the effect of, but for this, you cannot offer money, something like that. But that implies that for everything else you can. So it's not talking about, take this guy's eye out because he took somebody else's eye out. It's, remuneration. It's like lawsuit. It's like I'm walking in your lawn and I fall and break my leg and it's your fault because you weren't keeping up your property. I sue you or whatever. That's the implication by this verse. And I don't remember where the verse is.
So this is going to be responding to video questions or video comments in. I think that this comment thread trickled down from 2 videos, I think. Some people don't realize that I actually have a job. I don't sit at my computer 24 hours a day.
Don't really?
I know, right? So this is a person in YouTube chat. I'm gonna call him out by name, even though I don't know his name. It's Men Must Change Before Kingdoms. That's his YouTube handle, her YouTube handle. Okay.
Isn't it wonderful that we can hide behind anonymity?
Yeah. So this person is very aggressive and very hateful. And yes, I'm going to say that again. You are a very hateful person. You need to learn how to calm down. Okay, so let's see. I'm trying to find the one where he's responding to me, but here we go. It says, I'm trying to articulate this in a way that will make sense in the process I've saw them on YouTube, but I'm not sure if I can do that. Let's see. So I asked him to clarify. He said, you refuse to answer any oh, here it goes. It says, TaNaCh Talk, I see you are still refusing to answer my former post, William, but you continue to make clueless responses that you have absolutely nothing, like bold letters, to do with what I posted. You know what you are doing, and so does everyone else. So all I said was, I said, stay focused. Give me your questions one at a time. Response. You have all my comments right in front of you in your notifications, just like I do yours. So if you think I'm going to send them again, you will be waiting a long, long time. All caps.
Well, clearly he doesn't think they're important enough to get a response.
Or how easy it is to copy and paste. I mean, give me a break. So whoever this is, this may not even be an adult. It might be a teenager who's just really hot-tempered teenager. Usually when I see people like this, that's kind of why I tend to want to ask them how old they are, because if they're under 18, I don't like talking to them. As far as it goes. So.
If they're old enough to ask a question, they're old enough to get the truthful answer.
Yeah. So I did say, I responded and says, well, so you must be a very difficult person to live with. Please put your questions here one at a time. And then, and I did respond. I said, I am making a response video to all of your very rudely stated questions right now. You should be very proud of yourself if you don't have children or a wife. Patience and kindness are required for all. So I don't know what video the questions were on.
William, which video are you reading? I mean, what chat are you reading?
Right now, it's on video number 2000.
Even?
Yeah.
Do you realize what you're saying? Do you realize the impact of 2,000 videos?
Oh yeah, right. That's true.
That's 200 videos a year.
Yeah, right.
Because you're celebrating the 10th year coming up.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's 200 videos a year, and each video is at least an hour, if not 2 or 3 hours.
Not all of them. I would say.
Even if,
a portion.
William,
are, yeah.
Even if it's only 1 hour, that's 2,000 hours of education you are giving the world.
That's true. That's true.
The impact of that is just mind-boggling to me. That is more teaching than the vast majority of rabbis who've ever lived.
Wow.
Because those records are eternal, or at least as long as we have video. I mean, if a cassette can be replaced by a DVD, by a CD, and a CD can be replaced by a DVD, who knows what we're going to be recording on in 10 years?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
But the point is that the effect is enormous. I hope you understand what you just said.
Thank you. Yes, sir. I do now.
No, you should, and be incredibly proud of it. I'm proud of you for it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Mm.
This person is obviously new to my channel, because responding to someone else, it says, and just exactly who is the promised seed and the anointed Messiah, and what is his name? The verses they're talking about. They apparently have not watched any of my videos.
No, they don't. They pick and choose what they want to respond to self-aggrandize, to make themselves look like they're knowledgeable and they know what they're talking about.
And then here's a screaming text he sent. His name is Jesus, and Jesus shed his sinless blood for both Jews and Gentiles for the remission of sins.
The piety. Listen to his piety.
So that whosoever believes in him
shed his blood.
Right. And I would say this is an accidental caps lock, but it's not, because the very first letter is not. It's capitalized also. When somebody accidentally keeps caps lock on and they type properly, their first letter is small and the rest of them are all caps. They got it reversed. Okay, well, Rabbi, I'm going to let you go. Okay, it's been a long day.
All right.
So we'll catch up soon. All right.
All right. Good. All
okay.
Right.
I'm going to see. It's 5:30, 6:30, 7:38.
Tonight?
No, I don't think I have time. I think I'm going to have to put out another. So. I'll put another video. I'll put this one out tomorrow night.
If you enjoy this channel and the content, and it has changed your life, or perhaps the life of a loved one, or a close friend, would you please consider supporting this work? You can click this link and it'll take you directly to my website with the donate button. Or there's a Patreon link and a mailing address for snail mail if you would prefer. If you do donate, please do me a favor and leave me a phone number where I can contact you and thank you properly. I hope you all have a wonderful 2025. Shalom.